"Sire, remember the Athenians?" A cupbearer whispered these words 3 times at every meal, by order of Darius, the most powerful man on earth. This wasn't madness. It was policy. It traces back to a naval battle most people have never heard of, beside an island that no longer exists, the Battle of Lade, the hinge between a failed rebellion and the most famous wars in Western history. Lost not on the water, but 8 days before the fighting started. To understand why, we go back 6 years to the Eastern Aegean. The Ionian Greeks, Ionians, meaning Greek-speaking peoples on the western coast of Asia Minor, modern Turkey. Culturally Greek, but subjects of the Persian Empire. In 499 BC, they revolted. Athens sent 20 ships across the Aegean to help. Together, they burned Sardis, the regional Persian capital. Darius took this personally. Now, 5 years later, the Persian army is closing on Miletus, the revolt's heartland. The Ionians assemble their combined fleet at the island of Lade, just offshore, 353 ships, their last chance. They appoint Dionysius of Phocaea to forge these rival contingents into a single fighting force. Dionysius knew what he had, not a navy, but a crowd of ships from rival cities. He imposed brutal training, rowing drills at dawn, formation practice, the Diakplos maneuver where ships break through the enemy line to ram from behind. For 7 days, the crews obeyed. On the 8th day, they broke. The Ionians declared his discipline worse than Persian servitude. They refused to row. They sat in the shade of their beached ships. These were free citizens of independent city-states. They had the right to refuse, and they exercised it. The fleet's preparation stopped, fatally incomplete. Free men chose comfort over the discipline that could preserve their freedom. While the Ionians sat idle, the Persians waged a different war. The former tyrants of each Ionian city, men the revolt had expelled, sent private messages to their countrymen in the fleet. The offers: defect before the battle, keep your property, keep your lives, resist, and face enslavement. The Persians understood coalition warfare. A coalition breaks at its least committed member. They didn't need to defeat every contingent, just peel away enough to shatter the line. When the Phoenician-led fleet finally appeared, 600 ships against 353, the Ionians scrambled into formation. They were already fractured in spirit before the first ram struck. The Phoenician fleet began wrapping around both ends of the Greek line, the classic envelopment, and then the Samians broke. 49 ships raised sails and withdrew, not fleeing in panic, but sailing away by prior arrangement with the Persians. Their departure ripped open the line. The Lesbians saw the gap, saw their own flank exposed, and followed. 70 more ships gone. Each defection uncovered the next contingent, triggering further withdrawals. The coalition disintegrated, not all at once, but in a cascading chain of rational individual decisions. No single captain was irrational. Every defection made the next defection more logical. That is how coalitions die. Not everyone ran. The 100 ships from Chios fought with extraordinary valor, ramming Persian vessels, capturing enemy ships, holding their position long after hope was gone. And 9 Samian captains defied their own city's withdrawal order. While 49 Samian ships sailed away, these 9 held the battle line. They chose certain destruction over dishonor. Monuments were later erected in the Samian marketplace to honor those 9 captains, proof that the Greeks themselves understood what was lost and who embodied what should have been. The failure at Lade was not inevitable, it was chosen, and so was the courage of those who stayed. Lade is gone now, but what happened there didn't disappear with it. The island where the doomed fleet anchored no longer exists as an island. Over 2,500 years, the Meander River carried sediment downstream, filling the channel between Lade and the mainland. Today, Lade is an unremarkable hill in western Turkey, kilometers from the sea. The physical erasure mirrors the historical one, Ionian independence buried, silted over, absorbed into someone else's landscape. Yet the consequences of what happened there shaped everything that followed. With the revolt crushed and Miletus destroyed, Darius turned to unfinished business, Athens. Herodotus tells us Darius shot an arrow into the sky and prayed for vengeance against the Athenians. Then he appointed a cupbearer to repeat 3 times at every meal, "Sire, remember the Athenians." This was imperial strategy pivoting from suppressing a provincial rebellion to planning an invasion of mainland Greece. Lade didn't just end the Ionian Revolt. It began the Greco-Persian Wars, Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis. All of it traces back to this moment. The Ionians lost because their freedom included the freedom to refuse discipline, but that same Greek spirit of independence did not die at Lade. It was refined. 4 years later at Marathon, Athenian citizen soldiers charged the Persian army and won. 14 years later at Salamis, a Greek fleet, outnumbered but disciplined, destroyed the Persian navy in the Straits. Freedom had learned to discipline itself. The fleet that chose shade over survival lost everything. The Greeks who came after learned that freedom worth keeping demands the hardest thing of all, the willingness to constrain itself in order to survive.